Thank you, Lynn. And that is so wonderful to hear because she is so dedicated and so willing. And last night we get together on Tuesday nights and we do a lesson on the pathways of light. So we do a class together and we do it on Tuesday nights. And um, so what we were she was mentioning that the last time that she was having some technical difficulties and really couldn't get it. And so what I told her is when Hal was here, I created a room so we could test out different things or whatever, and I had told her about that. And so we went on that room, and so I was able to walk her through how to lock on the mic and raise your hand and what all that means. And so we ended up doing the entire hour in our class on awakening on Pal Talk. But the thing is that that's when the format kind of emerged is because she was thinking about maybe doing one half of it in English and one half of it in Spanish, and so it just emerged that she would do an English part and then a Spanish part, So so we that's what we did. We did the whole uh, our binder or our lesson for the hour doing it in English and Spanish, which was so great for me because my Spanish is okay, but it's not where I can uh, do a fluent lesson or fluent anything. Maybe not even a fluent conversation, depending on the subject matter. But it was really great for me to learn the flow and the discourse of the course and the lessons and everything on English and Spanish. And so I asked her if that's something that we can do from now on. And so she was up for it because she said she still needs to practice more on doing that kind of thing of the English and the English and Spanish. So I wasn't able to listen to her today, but I'm looking forward to listening to it. But I know it takes a lot of work to do that because I know when Maria Felipe, when she does it, she does some services like the Easter service and the Christmas service or whatever, where she has to do both of them at one time, and she says that it's some work. You have to say one thing and then try to translate it in your mind in another way. And so I can only imagine that, it's got to be some kind of work for Araceli, but she's just totally 100% willing. She just jumped in and said she's ready to do it, and so I'm so glad that it sounded like it came out really really good. So, anyways, um, my show, I'm still on working on what I was talking about last week, which is imagination. And it's still coming from Journey Beyond Words, Brett Haskell. It's one of those books that I just am referring to on a daily basis, and in all that I'm doing because it's taken me further and further into what really is the true awareness of where I believe that I am on the road to recognize the imagination has given me a very different perspective of the blockages, and it is making it a lot easier for me to recognize blockages if I only um, recognize that I'm just imagining them, and it is just as easy as, not easy all the time, but it with practice, the ego thought system is easier and easier to dismiss, just as something that I have imagined. Like, let's say I could say I could imagine, and my front door is black instead of white. That is just something I could imagine, and it's a white door, so I could easily just see that it's not true and realize that it's a white door. Putting it into that context in my life, in 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 every, let's put it this way, in every moment that I can be aware of it. Of course, there are times when I'm working where I got to focus on what I got to do or whatever, and so it's not really that I can be aware of it, but I try to be aware of what I am imagining um, at every moment in time. And the imagining not just comes from the ego imagining that I make up, where I'm at unease and in different situations, and but it's also the imagining of not having the thoughts, the thought system, which is defining a situation as a tool, or something to fear, or something that is important to my survival. So, having said that, I wanted to read a couple of things that I read last week, just to kind of set the tone for where I am progressing in imagination from this book, where like last time I was reading it, I read it um, as an example, and this is not anything that, when I'm reading this off, it's not anything that anyone can grasp unless they are really, really good at imagining things, but imagining part of your life or whatever. So I wanted to read just a little bit of it, just to set the tone. And actually, really, it is for me to have a foundation so that I can blast off from. I know where I want to go with this, but it's interesting when I let Holy Spirit let me, guide me into how I'm going to get there and navigate. As the last talk that I did on this, it just helped me so much and just moved me into a different, more real, more peaceful, more amazing realization. And so um, I'm going to read a couple parts here. And so let me start with this part right here. It says, "So I urge you to daydream as often as you can." And then let me stop there just for a second. For those who aren't familiar with this, this is also a a book that is channeled by James Haskell of Jesus. So this is quote unquote a continuation of the course. And so this is actually is supposed to be, or is, however, however I, you want, however you want me to present it, I'm presenting it as that. Okay. So I urge you to daydream as often as you can. about freedom and dominion, even within your illusions. Daydream that everything that happens to you is in fact yourself. It is in fact your choice. Nothing can happen to you except that you choose it, request it, and create it. So in this paragraph right here, we begin that awareness. Nothing happens except through our awareness. And that awareness is what we imagine what is out there, or and also what is in within us. In it can't really be any other way, because it is your awareness that is giving you your experience. It just can't be that way. You can have an opinion about what you're aware of. You can reject it. You can like it. You can dislike it. You can disown it. You can own it. Whatever it is, you choose to do with it, but it is yours, and it is your um, it's what you believe about yourself and the world at any given moment, like right now, and then a couple seconds later, right now, a couple seconds later, right now. It's all your creation, because it's all based on what you made up, all based on imagination, and it is all um, in the ego sense of the world. It is all relative, but in the spiritual sense of the world, it is all in absolutes. Okay, so the next paragraph goes, daydream about that, even the things that you call problems, daydream that they are your own choice. Even if it seems strange that you would choose them, realize indeed that they are your choice. So even what we think are problems are actually just our projections of what we're not willing to, or what we really don't understand, and is not within our ego goals. So as we reject them, we project them, and make them problems, because we don't believe that we create them. Okay. Then what may happen for you will be that which you might call a double negative. For already this world you live in, which you think is reality, is a dream. And if you can dream within that dream, you're dreaming within your dream. It may guide you back to reality if you can dream within your dream. Of what your reality actually is, then you may open the door through which you can move back into that reality. So yeah, that is a little bit of a mouthful, but basically what he's trying to say here is to dream that or imagine that everything you're experiencing or whatever is just a dream, and so actually get into an objective point of view to realize that you can actually change your dream by just imagining everything different from an observer point of view. Okay, so I want to move into what we really want to start imagining. Okay, and this is from the happiness section. Let us try now to imagine what your happiness might be. Remember, once again, this is not a course in learning about thoughts and ideas, but rather in going beyond them to the truth of what you see. So try now as you read to go beyond my words, beyond your thoughts, beyond your analyzing, to your experience, to your feelings. And so this paragraph to me is just trying to ground the the um, the objective, to me, the objective of experience of the observer, in a in a subjective sense, if you know what I mean. To personalize the objective is basically what he is saying. Let us try to find what happiness might be, if you can, only for a moment. Okay. Imagine that state of happiness and peace and joy and love. They are, of course, all the same. If you can imagine that state for even a moment, you will save 1,000 years of time. But try now as you read not to think, but to feel. There's a place within you where your spirit knows that you are one. In your stillness, you can find that place. You will find your home, that harbor within you, where only your real one self exists. You will feel that all is one, and as you feel that all is one, you will be able to realize that indeed your experience is one with you, that your experience is your one self. So in this paragraph, it is Jesus is asking us to leave all of the ego judgments alone. Like, don't pay any attention to it, which means is we're going to stop projecting, and we're going to start extending what is real. And as we extend what is real, we want to use our imagination as to what all of this reality genuinely means to us as um, as the oneness, as the peace and the joy and the love. Okay, so when I am doing this and imagining the peace and the joy and the love, and really in imagining as far as all with all my potential awareness, I can get to this place of, okay, I can imagine what it can be to be peaceful, joyous, and loving to to a certain point, because all my life it was all conditional, and so there always something outside of me had to happen to bring on this temporary experience of peace and joy and love, which weren't really peace, joy, and love, because it was all conditional. And so we're talking about moving in a state where there aren't any conditions to bring along the peace and the joy and the love. So as I move into this imagining, um, meaning that there are no conditions that are brought about that I'm depending on or relying on to experience the peace and the joy and the love. So that part there is a very important part for me, because it's hard for me to kind of go beyond what I know or what I can experience. Even in the silence, I can attain a sense of peace and of joy and of love to a certain degree, with whatever the imagination that I have. And so what this brought on for me is a train of awareness that that brought about, okay, well, what is this thing of imagining? What is this power of imagining? And how can it take me to the awareness of what I'm feeling right now, or what my present awareness is into to something else? How is that done? How is that possible? How is it possible? So, and it really brought me into a I don't want to say crazy place, but I mean it brought me into a a place where I've never heard of anyone else kind of explaining it the way that I'm experiencing it, but where it brought me to a point of there is that gift that God has endowed us, that He created everything with and as with this imagining. So right now, as this my current awareness of reality is that this imagining that is the Christ is an ongoing creative process of everything that is going on. And so, for example, in let's say I see the trees outside, okay? So for me, if I am going to imagine the imagining of Christ, of the Christ is doing that imagining of, let's say, nature, of that tree. When a seed gets put in, it is an ongoing imagining of the Christ consciousness that brings that seed into life and builds it up into a tree. So it is that basic foundation of a Christ consciousness that is in constant imagining of let's say nature, of us, of my pets. Like, one thing that I thought of is a like a chameleon, that changes colors. You put the chameleon in a green background, it turns green. You put it in a orange background, it turns orange. So how does that chameleon know how to change those colors? And the answer that came up with me was the imagining is built into the nature of the chameleon. So when the chameleon's imagining goes into a green, it imagines that as being green. Or orange, it imagines by its very nature goes into orange, because the Christhood is constant imagining of all of these things that are happening. So, as it says in the your text, that God gave His Son the power of projection, as just as God has projected, the life of his sons and daughter. So it is still, that gift is where I'm getting to, is with everything, eternity, everything that's in eternity, as far as, like I say, nature, plants, and so on and so forth. It's like when we see these birds that are flying south for the winter, and we see them all joining into moving in one direction. You know, that to me, in that bird by its instinct is the imagining of the Christ, imagining this whole process of migration, and the whole process of of life. So when when I'm at that point, imagining the imagination of life, of all that there is, then I can put myself in a situation where I can expand into those places of what this paragraph had said in the peace, joy, and love. Because if everything is based on imagination and there's nothing else but that imagination, then I can take it as far as the Christ can go. If I can hop on that same awareness of the Christ awareness in everything that the Christ is manifesting as this world, as the imagination, then I can see how I can really take the joy further than what I have that is inside of me, or what I'm saying, my limited awareness. My awareness now is not my awareness anymore. It isn't my limited concept of peace anymore. My awareness hops on and sees the imagination of God in everything, and it is a process of um, of constant expansion of creativity, of harmony, and once I'm getting into that consciousness, it that's when I really feel that love, that gratitude of how wonderful and beautiful this world is, and my part in it, that I can see this whole spiritual sense of the world just moving in a such a beautiful um, just a beautiful uh, image, as far as you know I don't have to really take it upon my responsibility to imagine anything, because I really can't on my own. But all I can do is just, like the Course says about the willingness, just to be willing to imagine the everything that is this world in the process of imagination. I call it God, but you can call it anything you want, but it is brought me to a place where I love that principle of um, of imagining the the imagining. It's I know this is kind of crazy, the way but this is something that is happening with me right now. But it is um, it is a profound experience of love when when I can realize that I can go into that experience by just choosing to go into that experience. And it is loving that ability to go into that experience. It's experiencing that love, that I even have a choice to go into that experience. Um, and it is a very loving thing for me to love the way everything is unfolding in my awareness right now because of this whole concept of imagination. And yeah, okay, I see it says like fake it until you make it. Well, um, it is in a sense kind of like that, but um, if you look at there's a an intelligence that's imagining everything happening is when I got like the big breakthrough. But I can imagine if I'm keeping the imagining in my own as my own responsibility to imagine it, then I can only go so far. But when I can take it and look at and see that as an observer that the imagining's already going on as the world, as life, then it's like, whoa, and I'm part of that. And I'm part of that. Oh, faith. Faith it till you make it. Yes. Yes. And and what to say the faith about it is when I started reading this Journey Beyond Words, it was one of those things like when I picked up the course is I knew something was in here. You know, when I read this thing, Correct Use of Imagination, and this book probably has something about imagination on most of through the book, and so there was something like, wow, you know, it is there's something in here that is true that Jesus is just telling us to um, to imagine, meaning like get out of the the structured way, the material way of prospecting, of believing, or of what the awareness is, because awareness is just is unbounded, and awareness is the realization, the perception of of the imagining that's going on. The imagining is is eternal. You know, for the way I'm looking at it right now, there is no boundaries in the in the imaginations. You know, in the Christ imagination, in the Christ imagination, it's all for you know for what it is. I can just say is. I don't want to put a label of love or anything is, because it's beyond all. It's beyond all of it's beyond all structured thought. But if I could share anything that might kind of help, not help, or maybe have a breakthrough for someone else, it would be imagine not. I mean, yes, like the book says, imagine the peace, joy, state of happiness. That's definitely a beginning, because it's telling you what what the qualities of what you're going to feel and what you're going to realize. Absolutely, you're going to live those. All of that's going to incorporate into your experience. But taking, then that's a good beginning. But to take the essence of what Jesus is telling us to imagine, but that is that is it right then and there, is just the imagining. We are the imagining, and the whole world and the whole Christ consciousness is the imagining. You know, it's like in the course where they're taught, okay, like I want happiness, so I think buying a TV or something is going to bring me that happiness, and it really and it doesn't. But so the course teaches we go after the happiness. Okay, so this is kind of taking it one step beyond, is because now instead of going after the happiness, I'm going after the whole imagination, the imagining that brings the happiness itself, or is part of the happiness, and the happiness is all of that in getting on board with imagining as the Christ, with Christ in co-creation with Christ, with the Christ imagination. And it's yes, better to imagine what we do want rather than what we don't want. Absolutely, you know. Um, and it's always better to take the initiative, for me, to extend love always, and instead of stopping and trying to analyze what the world is trying to feed me. What I've learned and what worked for me is constant extending. Extend what I believe is true. Extend love, extend innocence, extend compassion, extend anything that you can do to extend what is holy and true. And never mind what the world, what we, our perceptions or our projections try to come back at us. It's always us projecting, extending our world, and now imagining what our world is going to be, because we are the source. We are the source. So it's, once I stop extending what I want my world to be, then it's back to the survival consciousness of the ego, you know, and um, and so that's where this whole thing is the mind training, to remove the blockages. Without having the blockages removed, for me, I never had a chance. And so that's the mind training. So when the blockages start coming down, then I became more open, more I don't want to say teachable, but the more of what truth is and what love is and what reality is, the self-evident um, process of life, which now I'm realizing that's all that is the imagination of Christ. I wouldn't have had a clue to have this kind of freedom to even think things, um, you know, not things like this, but have an awareness being revealed to me for this kind of thing, and um, so now when I um, am going through this and trying, and not trying, but moving into this awareness of a pure imagination, of getting on board and having what Christ vision. But now the Christ vision has my Christ vision was just to be into seeing my brothers and sisters as the innocence, which is still is very, very huge for me, because I get caught up on judging people by the way they look still. I'm not that far advanced yet, you know, and I don't know if I ever will be. But the innocence, as by looking at someone with, when I feel like I'm judging, and go into innocence, and picture that person as just a 2-year-old child, with just total you know innocent love, with a total clean imagination. But you know that imagination is concerned with survival at the time. So it imagines, all of these things that could happen that's going to get in the way of the survival of the child, So it's taken me this long, 61 years, to kind of reverse it and start using, the correct use of imagination, which this journey beyond words is. To me, it's all about that. It's all about that, you know. And then I would even, venture to say even before the separation, it was all a matter of being conscious, if we could say we were an individual conscious, but just being aware of all of that whole process of imagination. It's just being eternal, you know, and just being in awe in that state. The ego state tells me, well, you without a body or whatever, okay, yeah, you're in peace all the time, and so like, what's there to do? Why do you want to be in that? But that's a limited thought. But now when I see and I can understand what that consciousness could really be like, to have just that wonder and be a part of that Christ imagination that is like eternal. It's like, I mean, I'm sure that what I'm realizing right now is just a very, very minuscule part of it, but it's a part of like Joel Goldsmith would say, touching the hem of the Christ. But it is a peek into some place that I've never been before, even to come up with a concept like this. And I'm sure that there's somewhere in, maybe even in the course, or some other place, where there's probably a teaching that goes into it and explains it all at length. But that didn't happen for me. This is something that has happened as a result of this book. And then I can see, when I'm out and about and see trees and people and even buildings and cars, I look at those as symbols of what the imagination has expressed as, or as I don't maybe I don't know what the words to say, but those are all expressions of that imagination. And so, when you look at, let's say, a car or whatever that's styled a certain way, it's a whole aspect of all of the imagination that had to be freed and expressed as to constitute every little part and everything to make it work, or even like a house, the architecture of a house, all of the intricate details and everything, and all the structural laws and everything that has to happen, you know, in the realms of imagination, And I would also imagine that that's just in this world. In other worlds, there's probably different laws that were imagined, or part of that imagined master plan, if you will, that incorporates so many different aspects. Right now I love paintings, like a lot of free form paintings, a lot of indigenous stuff that I have around my home, just to remind me of that imaginative part of me. And not that, I even realized it, but the more and more I'm realizing it, what I'm surrounding myself about around now is that truth of who I am as the imagination, you know. And so yeah, everything I lay my eyes on, it is almost like a little festival of looking at something and what the purpose was, and how someone imagined this to construct this thing, or and use that imaginative process to make this certain concept of what it has into form. And so now, my world right now is a lot of of just driving to work, and seeing all of these different things, the trees, and how the trees are formulated, and the different colors of the roses, and all that. I just see that as the Christ imagination. But then, by I don't I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. I don't see them as that Christ imagination as an effect. I get on board as being part of imagining that, as a co-creator, as part of that creative process of the Christhood, because that is exactly what I am. I am that co-creator of the world, of everything that exists. Is I am part of that consciousness, that creative aspect of God, of allness. And so that is my imagining also. When I see a flower, that's part of what I imagined. And I see a tree, that's part of my imagination, that is being manifested there in the tree. Same thing with the chameleon, and the birds that all know where to go, and what to do. It was like, that's part of my very own imagination, a co-creator with God. That is that that whole process of, the birds getting in line and going wherever they go, and that wisdom that the birds have, is the living imagination, is to go ahead and fly and do that. It's their individualized imagination, that they imagine that they got to go that ways. So I don't know. This is, like I said, this is something that is um, um, living in me, and what my experience is with it right now. It is a very beautiful experience for me, and I I I really try to be conscious of when I'm in that zone, that to bring home that I really love that fact of of um, of consciously going into that imaginative state, that creative state, that fills me with so much love and gratitude, to is to love that law, to love that law, as it is done unto you as you believe. Is that, you know and the more that I extend it out as a Christ consciousness, and do the correct use of that imagination, um, all of the petty problems, and the ego problems, and those kind of things, the drama that goes on sometimes at work, and the personality stuff, it it distances me more and more. And then I see, people that might be haggling with that. First, haggling between themselves over personality things and ego problems. First, I make the correction. If I'm seeing something like that, I make that correction, or I try to make that correction most of the time, as innocents, and seeing that they're innocents. They as Jesus said, forgive them. They know not what they do, and so I try to move into that consciousness. But then if I can get past even using that innocence as a basis, and then move it into, this is part of the Christ imagination, and then that whole person just turns into a thing of tremendous beauty, of art and personality, to see this imaging now of the Christhood, as something sacred and beautiful and blooming, in their personalities, not really judging them or looking at what their beliefs and behaviors are. Even in their behavior, if they're getting mad or whatever, there's still that beauty of the Christ imagination in that person. And so it's a good, I mean, it is a process for me. So I hope that that went over well with or that that got through with some. And I do um, apologize for the way I'm talking, because this is something that's very new to me. So putting into words, I'm not a really good speaker anyways, but trying to put this into words to where I can explain it is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing for me, because it really is an experience that really needs experience to know it. So once again, it's just the imagining of the Christ imagination, that this whole um, sense of awareness, even the awareness is a gift of the imagination, that there was a Christ consciousness, or whatever we want to call it, that imagined awarenesses, imagine this instrument that we live our life through. That in itself is a product of a tremendous imagination, to create us with a consciousness to be aware. You know, I mean, what kind of awareness can create awareness? You know, so that's another thing that I never would have thought of. It's just the whole freedom of imagination. Even, you know, um, I don't know. I mean, um, I am. I was trying that before you said you weren't good at speaking. Oh God. Well, I don't know. And I've been on this. Been on. I think that might have been even my third thought on imagination, one right after the other. Well, actually not. But still, it's still a something that is moving through my life, and I don't know, maybe next week I might get a little bit more of it, and with more musings or whatever as to what is taking place. But that's what my show is. My show is just my experience of how I am um, having the blockages removed, and what is being revealed as a result of that. And yeah, it is one big chocolate factory, and also that includes white chocolate too, and all the other different chocolates and everything of the world. And so I don't know. I guess I'm kind of like out of words. What I've been really trying to do, and I'm going to work on it this week, is music has been a big part of this expansion. There's so many songs that have that also have taken my imagination and have really ran it up to some new beautiful heights. And so I got to figure out how to do the music thing on here. I bought a mixer when Hal was here and all that, and I just haven't had time to get it to work, but I'm going to do that someday. So anyways, I'm about I'm about done. I want to thank Lynn very much for allowing me this pause for of inspiration, because I always grow so much when after one of these talks. It's like when the talk ends, that's when things just start rolling. My life and imagination and everything starts rolling right after the talk. So I'm so grateful just to have a space like this to talk in, because I always teach what I gotta learn, and it's been a tremendous opportunity for me. So, what kind of dogs do I have? I have two black Pomeranians. One one is a male. His name is Skinny Boy, and he's probably about 11 years old. And then I have Milagros, which means miracles in Spanish. She's about a year and a half, and they're both black Pomeranians, and they're like my inspiration. When I wake up in the morning, they're jumping up and down and wanting to play, and they just see nothing but innocence and nothing, that is false in the world. They're about as true as you can, as true as I can choose. I was trying to say as true as you can get, but they are there's no sneakiness around them. But I guess I can't even say that either, because like my little Milagro, she sometimes takes food and hides it and has little strategies going on for someone specifically looking for a male purebred black pom. Oh, okay. Well, they're not that easy to find. They're not that easy to find, but I love them. But anyways, thank you everybody, and I'm going to hand the mic back over to Lynn. Thank you so much. Love you, Lynn, so much for offering me this opportunity. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Tom Vargas. And yeah, that was really good. Oh my gosh, Tom. I know I hope you record these. If you record these, and of course, you've always done really good. I mean, honestly, we're like new and nervous. Um, but I just see a shift in you that, and what you said about after you speak and teach, that you feel that is that's what Jesus is talking to us about in the course. That's why he is so adamant that we share, that we teach, that we share our experience, demonstrate our experience with the practices and the forgiveness. Because when you do that, you join with your brothers, and when we join together, it is powerful. Is extremely powerful. And so thank you one more time for that. And appreciate you. And then, of course, getting us Rev Araceli and getting, helping out with Veronica and help, working with Hal. And I mean, this is, you've been a real asset to our little community. And I'm just so, so very grateful to know you. And yeah, very, very calm and very wise. No, I'm not kidding. I think you're very wise in the way that you deal with things. So I'm very grateful to have you here. And so let me look here. Does anybody see Dr. Paul, Uncle Buddy, Black Crow, and oh, and Reverend Araceli? Oh my gosh, when she's on, people are just like, mesmerized, mesmerized. She is what a star. So once again, so grateful that we it all comes about in what really from I guess from Veronica and from you working with Veronica uh, because you are so helpful and you serve the what I call sacred seva. It's a sacred service, and when you um, are the sacred service doing the sacred service, it does shift things. It shifts for you. It shifts for the people who are listening, and it's just a lovely, lovely, lovely um, situation all the way around. So I appreciate it very much, you being here, and I appreciate very much your, everyone's so clear today. Maybe our ears are more open. And that could very well be two dances that it's just, a matter of the opening of the mind. And that's what's happening here. Let's see. Oh, this.